Radio. Are we live?
Oh shit! Ah! Wait. Sideways.
No, I wanted to be sideways.
No, it was looking at me.
Oh, was it looking at Francis? Hey everybody, welcome to Talk Recovery. Thanks to Facebook Land for supporting us and watching us. Is that loud? Yeah, it's loud. We got like thousands of watchers. We're really happy. Thank you. We got Jeremy in the house. We got Darren in the house. We got Francis behind the camera. Hi, Francis.
Yeah, I'm not putting it like.
Alright, we're going live in a couple seconds. Yeah, mics on. Alrighty, welcome back to Talk Recovery Radio. You're listening to Vancouver Co-op Radio, CFRO 100.5 FM. We're also on Facebook Live. We had Arnie there, one of our awesome conversations going on about gambling addiction. So if you're addicted to gambling, check out our Facebook page. We'll be podcasting that show, and it's going to end up on iTunes. Arnie's got some great stories there about being a gambling addict in recovery, so that's awesome. Before we get into the next part of our show, it's Spring Drive Expectations. I've got a list of rules here that I'm supposed to do, but I'm going to do it Giuseppe style and get rid of 3/4 of it. And so basically we're doing a fundraiser. Co-op Radio doesn't have any commercials, so we get donors from you and from you and from you and from me. And we try to keep this radio station going. And this Spring Drive theme is gratitude. So if you can tell us what you're grateful for about our show, I'm going to post what the drive is all on our Facebook page. And if you want to support Talk Recovery, you can make a donation to Co-op Radio in our name and help pay for this studio. So we are now moving on to our second guest. A while ago we started doing personal stories on Facebook Live, and we've been getting people from the recovery community to join us and to give us a conversation about what it's like in recovery. And I guess to get a sense of what it's like in recovery, we obviously need to know a little bit about the past too. So I've got Jeremy in studio. Hello, Jeremy. Welcome to Talk Recovery Radio.
Hey everyone, how's it going?
Yes, we're doing good. So, Jeremy, for our listeners out there, if we can just get a little bit of an idea of who are you? Like, what's going on?
Who I am now versus who I am in the past?
Well, let's not get into too much detail in the past, but you're a person in long-term recovery.
Yeah.
And a little bit of your recovery journey. Did you just go to rehab and get clean, or what was your story?
If I could summarize it real quick, I've got sort of two recovery sort of histories. So I spent, when I was 19, I got clean the first time, and it was pretty cut and dry, clear that I needed recovery because I was on the street. I was in and out of prison. And so that was a quick and easy, like, you need to go to recovery. That was clear. And then I spent 6.5 years sober, and I was going to lots of meetings, really engaged in recovery. And then at 26 years old, I made a choice that maybe I wasn't an alcoholic or an addict anymore. Maybe I was growing out of it, and so maybe I should give it another shot. So at 26, I started drinking again, kind of like dived into the party scene, worked at a bar, kind of I'm an adult drinker now, and then that kind of fell apart, and at 30 years old I had to get sober again because it was not the same as when I was a teenager, when I was on the street. It was just inside. It was the same feelings of feeling like I was hopeless and out of control. So at 30 I got sober again, and so now I'm in my third year this time around. So yeah, I'm really engaged in recovery. Thank you. Yeah.
So this unfortunately does happen to many people where recovery, rah. I've known you for a really long time.
Yeah, you've known me in both.
I've known you in both, and it was a recovery school. So there's kind of like you get what you need. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You went to school and all that kind of stuff. So there's people probably watching right now who are probably right there where it's just like, I got my life back, I got my job back, I got everything back.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm feeling like maybe I could have I deserve a beer.
Yeah. That's a dangerous place to be mentally. So
what would you recommend to somebody who, might be, so your personal story is you tried it and it didn't work. Mm-hmm. So what would you say to somebody right now? If that's what you're thinking right now about when you go to meetings and right now you're like, maybe, what would you say to them?
I think that it really depends on your perception, because I used to listen to people coming back And when I left, I was like, well, I'm not going to be one of those people coming back. And now what I do is I listen to the people when they're coming back and how bad it was going to be. And then when I came back this time, you know, I gave a message of like, yeah, it didn't go very well, and here I am back in recovery. And people were like, thank God you came when you did, because I was just thinking the same thing about going out. So listening, just like really listening to the people about the stories, because we all think that we're different, that we're unique, and that we're not going to be the same as this guy that's coming back. But here I am. I'm that guy now.
You know, I remember being a little jealous a little bit too, because I'm friends with Jeremy on Facebook, and I would be like, look at him at the bar, you know.
He's doing it. He's really doing it this time.
You know, and he's got his hair and all that kind of stuff. You know, I'm like, I want to do that, you know, and then you came back and so forth, and you know, part of my healing was just like I get all that, and you know, I don't want to live the rest of my life in a Facebook picture in a bar, you know, and so I've come to terms with that. It's like that snapshot isn't what I need anymore to survive.
Right.
So you know, if you're going through what you're going through, and you're seeing some of your friends in recovery kind of doing whatever else they're doing and stuff like that, you know, just realize, you know, where you're at in life, and just what you want to be grateful for and all that kind of stuff. So now you're back in recovery. You know, you went to meetings and so forth, and you did some recovery. So compared to, you know, they say relapse is a learning curve, and you learn from your relapse. And then there's another camp that says, you know, you would have learned more staying clean, and you know, relapse doesn't have to be part of the story. So how hard was it to come back?
I probably should have come back 2 years before I actually did, because I was embarrassed. I wanted to handle it by myself, and it was hard. It was difficult to walk through the doors and to actually reach out to someone that I knew was in recovery that would take me to a meeting. But as soon as I did, oh my God, what a relief. Like, my life just got significantly easier, like so much better and faster if I had just done it earlier. And I did learn what I needed to learn, though. So I feel like maybe relapse was a part of my recovery that needed to happen. And unfortunately, like, it did keep me away. I would have had 13 years sober right now, but I'm sitting at almost 3. But I learned what I needed to, because I would have done this later in my life. I'm glad I did it now and got it out of my system, because I always would have wondered, oh, what it'll be like if I could just have some wine with dinner.
Yeah,
you know, and now I know, well, wine ends up with cocaine. Actually, that's what actually happens for me.
And for a lot of people, and so forth, and some even worse than that.
Yeah.
So now that you know, you're finished school and your career rise and so forth, in recovery, after being away for a while, do you find that you're able to handle what your hopes, dreams, and goals are easier now? Like, you know, before you relapsed and stuff, you had all these questions and so forth. So now it's like you got that all out of your system. So now here you are, you're starting a new company, Journey to Worthy. You know, do you think you would have been able to do that before? You know, like, what got you to do that now?
In my first bout of sobriety, I don't think I would have, because I was still quite young. Like, I got sober when I was 19 years old, so I felt like I literally, like, grew up in AA or NA.
Okay.
And so this time around, like, I've been out there a little longer, I've had a little bit more life experience. Now I know, like, my negatives or my faults, they're actually my strengths. Like, I talk openly about recovery, my weaknesses, like the stuff that I've gone through. All of that stuff is the stuff that it's my shield, it's my armor now. Like, it's stuff that I can share with people to give them strength, as opposed to feeling embarrassed by that. You know, all of those promises that talk about we will not regret the past, and I don't anymore. It all makes sense. It all leads me to right where I am right now, where I can actually give a message of hope to people that, you know, you're not alone. You can do this with other people in your life.
You know, a lot of people talk about the stigma of addiction. Yeah. I'm more about the stigma of recovery. I've never met anyone that's, you know, really been... You know, there are people out there that really think recovery is just, you know, you don't tell anybody about your recovery and anonymity, and, you know, you get worried people are going to know that you're clean and sober, and it's just like... that's the bigger problem. I know some people that won't even tell their employers they're in recovery for fear of their employers might think that they may relapse and all that kind of stuff. So, like, recovery becomes this thing that has way more stigmatizing than addiction. So I want to get to your podcasts and so forth. So what inspired you to do them, and what's your goals with them, and how are they going to help us?
Well, the podcast right now, it started honestly like... might sound weird, but I was like Googling answers to life. You know, those moments when you're like, I don't know what's supposed to happen right now, and why do I feel like a bag of crap? and not understanding what I was supposed to do next. And so I was looking for answers on Google and not finding them. Why would I stay in this relationship? Like, why is this happening?
That's
why
awesome.
would I stay in this situation? And I just felt like, for me, being a gay man, especially in recovery, like I didn't feel like I had a lot of people to look up to. I feel like there's only a few sort of gay idols out there, really, that I look up to. And so all of a sudden I had this idea, like, what if the things that I'm learning in my life right now, what if I'm supposed to share them at a public level to help people that are in my situation? And so that's honestly where it stemmed from. And now, like, I went traveling for a few months and really did some, like, self-discovery and did the whole eat, pray, love, eat gay love in my situation.
Nice.
And so, like, I really did some soul searching while I was away. I was in Bali, I was in Australia, and then I came back and I realized, like, I had that self-limiting belief, like, I can't do this. And that's what I struggled with my whole life, and just feeling like I wanted to play small because I was too afraid that I could actually do something big. And all of a sudden, I broke through something, and I have to do this. Like, it's the first thing in my life that I've actually felt like a passion and a calling for. I always watch people, like, running around with these brilliant ideas, and they were, like, really going out and doing it, and I didn't feel like I had that calling of my thing. And for the first time in my life, this is what I have to do. And so I don't know where it's supposed to go, but I just know that I can't not do it.
So what is it? It's you do a podcast once a week?
Yeah, I do. Publish once a week.
Okay.
And it started off with just a little bit of my own personal experience, and I bring in some research. But now I've sort of branched out into interviews, and I'm kind of looking for the next sort of structure of what kind of topics I want to bring in. And so if people are interested in being in the show, sometimes I've had people reach out to me and vice versa, or I seek people out based on, you know, the obstacles that they've overcome, that I really want to share their message with my audience.
Well, it's an amazing experience. I myself, you know, have the same passion. Like, I'm just hearing you speak, and you know, one thing I never thought from doing this show was the broadening of my appreciation and respect for the many pathways of recovery. Like, when I started doing the show, like, I was this way. I was moderately closed-minded, but you know, we've interviewed people. Darren's laughing over here.
I just loved your political, modestly closed-minded.
Yeah, but you know, we've had the people from Trevor Miller from ayahuasca on the show. We've had Dr. Scott McDonald from the prescription hydromorphine, and you know what? Like, it all helps for the right person that needs that.
Exactly.
And so my level of understanding and compassion has changed since doing this show, and I wish the same for you. I want to talk about some GLBTQ issues and so forth, and BC Center on Substance Use came out with a big study. They were at a conference in the States I was just at, and talking about Vancouver's gay community and the crystal meth epidemic that's here. And you know, everyone's talking about fentanyl, but really there's this other thing going on that just really, you know, make it a poster here and there in a health clinic. But there's a lot of gay men doing crystal meth in Vancouver, and they're getting very sick. They might not die on the spot, but they're slowly dying.
Yeah.
And
like, there's this cultural pressure to A, drink, and B, party, and C, have sex. And those are just like the norm. Like, I grew up and that was the cultural norm, and those are the people I look up to. Like, these are what we're doing. We're having sex, we're doing drugs, and crystal meth was a big part of that. But then I felt like it was not sort of common or not cool for a while, and people were just doing a lot of cocaine. But now crystal meth seems to be like so big, especially this whole new idea or term like chemsex. It used to be party and play, now it's chemsex. Like, there's all these new...
I've never heard that. Chemsex.
Chemsex. There's a whole bunch of new research out that's like what's sort of the new cultural norm for party and play. And it's shifted, and it's so big in Vancouver, and there's specific programs specifically for people that are, you know, dealing with like drugs or crystal meth addiction and sex addiction.
Do you know what any of those are?
Like the Matrix
The
program?
Matrix program,
Yeah,
okay.
I know that a lot of people that have gone through that it creates a safe space where they can actually share honestly, because a lot of times with recovery, like, sex is kind of like an outside issue, and like you can't really talk about that openly in the meetings, which I understand because, you know, we all suffer from different things, and maybe there needs to be a space specifically where you can talk about how sex and drugs are intertwined. So it's definitely like a huge issue. And for me, like, sex maybe was tied to my addiction, but I didn't let myself go back to meth in this last relapse because I just felt like if I was doing meth, then I'd be an addict. So cocaine is okay, you know, so I didn't go there. But I see how prevalent it is, and I see a lot of people that are it's almost normalified. Like you go to the bathhouse culture, and there's apparently meth all over the place. Even people that work in these bathhouses are, they're doing meth, and it's just become more common. And when I was doing drugs and partying, there was barely any needles in the the party atmosphere. Like my other side of my addiction, like on the street, yeah, there was. But now apparently like needles and slamming is really popular in bathhouse culture, and that's super, super scary because it seems like it's just got so much more intense and normified in some way.
I'm curious if anyone knows, is there certain medications involved in that demographic getting clean? Or I'm just thinking of that detox, that abstinence 6-month period of like complete chemical imbalance, from such heightened, chemical use and sexual involvement, and do people get thrown antidepressants and antipsychotics in that situation?
I would say probably antidepressants for sure. And then, I worked at a detox for a few years, and the people that were on meth typically weren't on as much medication as obviously people that are coming off of opioids. But yeah, antidepressants, and then people that are having problems with sleep because you're sleeping so hard for the first while because you haven't been sleeping very much, and then you're back up and you're way too high, like you said, imbalance. So people probably going on a lot of things like trazodone and sleeping medication. But other than that, I don't actually know. I mean, I think when I first got clean off meth when I was 19, I was put on Wellbutrin, which was just like a basic antidepressant, and also to help cravings.
Well, the one thing with crystal meth too, and one of my friends has passed away because of it. He was a crystal meth addict, but when you do crystal meth for so long, and that's what one of the things was about this research is you might start off just doing crystal meth, start doing lots of crystal meth, but then you get to a point in crystal meth where you can't go to sleep, so they start doing down so they can start going to sleep, and that's where the opiates come in, and they'll do, crystal meth for a few days and then do an opiate. And that's the opiate that could have the fentanyl in it, and so that's what's causing the big scare now within the gay community. Is it can lead to even more overdoses within the gay community as well. So let's we got a few minutes here left. Let's talk about service, because I know you're a big part of service, and anybody's recovery story with a smile, except when you're at a committee meeting, includes service. Because usually at the committee meeting, it's a little different. So you just were part of a big convention. We don't have to say which one it was. How did that feel, doing that convention? And how did it feel, just like, what's that all about?
I sort of show up for things in recovery and service and not know what I'm getting myself into. And I just sort of like, sure, I'll just do whatever you need me to do. I thought I was doing decorations. Here I ended up doing an entertainment chair where I had to organize a talent show and a DJ event, and I had no idea how to do any of that stuff. So honestly, like half the time in recovery, I'm just learning how to do things by showing up, and it's super exciting as long as I just remember people got my back and I will get through it. And the thing is, I showed up and I put the energy in, and it turned out so amazing. Like I got to manage performers, which was super cool. I was like directing a talent show. Like I've never done anything like that before. And watching like this drag queen that's like newly sober, like get comfortable with his body, and like get comfortable with performing, and like watching people sort of come out their own and start singing. And I don't know, like the joy in recovery like can be had if you like put yourself in uncomfortable situations sometimes, and performing can be an amazing outlet for people, and being creative. So yeah, I learned a lot about sort of like managing, structuring, organizing people, and the day of the event it was pretty crazy, but got through it, and
those skills are so transferable into your real life. I mean,
event planning.
The best part of service is, if you make a mistake, you don't get fired. So you can learn and test the waters. And so if you're listening or watching and you're in recovery and you're like, oh, I don't know how to do anything, it's like, just show up and just be part of, and nobody will know really, and they're not going to blame you, and everybody just moves on and everything happens. And I was there at that conference, and you get to a place where like when a lot of volunteer hours got put into this just so we got a place to go and meet new people and see old friends, and it's really special. It's the part of recovery that gets you friends, and I really believe in connection. If you don't connect yourself to community, if you don't connect yourself to people, life can get dangerous, not just boring. And I'm grateful to people that like you that helped with that event. So your website and your podcast, how can people find it? How can people listen?
Yeah, if anyone wants to check out the website, it's journey2worthy.com. That's journey2worthy.com. On Instagram, I always respond to all my messages on Instagram, so it's username at journey2jeremy, journey2jeremy. So please reach out to me. Check out the podcast. I do a bunch of show notes where I add some information additionally on top of the podcast, so if you want to check out that. I do have a Facebook page, Journey to Worthy, as well as my Twitter account, Journey2Jeremy. So yeah, lots of great information there for people to tap into, and also I'm really open to people that want me to cover certain topics, or if anyone's curious about being on the show as well, I'm always welcome to invitations.
Well, that is awesome.
Yeah.
You know, I'm super excited that you're following your dreams, and congratulations on recovery. Congratulations. I'm glad you're back. You know, people missed you when you weren't around, and I'm just glad that you got to experience that, and you're helping others. So thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And when the story and the experience all comes together, that, you know, it's either do I get to find out whether or not I can successfully have a mimosa on an Earl's patio and get a little bit drunk, or can I help organize and dedicate myself to an event that allows people to express themselves in a way that they may never have been able to before, that help them become confident in their recovery. And it's like, you know, and I get it. Like, I'm not putting anybody down that's sitting there thinking whether or not I can go out and try it differently and in different ways. But it's just, obviously, if you're asking yourself that question, there's something missing in what you're doing
picture,
in your life.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the question to ask.
It's a much bigger high, getting, helping people as opposed to just that buzz on the patio, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. So you're listening to Talk Recovery Radio. Thanks everybody for listening and watching. I just want to end off the show. If you want to be part of Recovery Day BC, it's on September 8th this year in New Westminster, BC. And there's going to be a committee meeting coming up. It's in May. I just can't remember the day, but you can go to facebook.com/Recovery Day. That's a tough one. So you go to that page, and there's going to be a posting at some point today on when the next meeting is. And if we all need to laugh, and we all need to have fun in recovery. There's a show called Addictive Comedy. It's on June 16th. I accidentally stumbled into this show in White Rock in this little room, and there was these comedians. And I tell you, I laughed so hard. I was just like, this is like a great show. I stopped doing comedy fundraisers because I love comedians, but comedians are just, there was this thing where it was just getting really like, I think my mom's not here, like it just was getting a really, really X-rated. And this was just good, fun, humor. All the girls, all the women in the show are in recovery. And so there's that slang, but you don't have to be in recovery to get it. But if you're in recovery, there's definitely some good one-liners. It's a fundraiser for Recovery Day. Tickets are $25. You can go to Massey Theatre and just search for Addictive Comedy, or you can go to Addictive Comedy on Facebook and buy tickets there. I think we're like halfway sold. There's 1,000 tickets, so it's going to be a great party. So I hope to see you there June 16th.
Right on. Well, this has been Talk Recovery on Vancouver Co-op Radio 100.5 CFRO. Let's finish off our show today with a little Glass Tiger. This is my song.
Say goodbye.
Bye. All right, I love Glass Tiger.